Hello, everybody. Nick DeTiro, Professor of Information Technology, Computer Science, Lakeland Community College. It's time to start investigating a case. Now, we're at the point in the course content where they kind of get into a little of the bits and the bytes of the hard drive and the operating systems and things like that. And that is great content to deal with. But I want to use this time now to actually look at how we build our forensics investigation. So we're going to start real simple. And again, as I said in previous videos, we have to suspend a little bit of reality. Some of the things I'm going to do here, I chose very small amounts of data, and I'm going to speed up when it's just boring material, and I know what the outcomes are. So I was just checking my sound. So as I do that, keep this in mind. The bigger the information you're dealing with, the more time it's going to take. So let's start with this right here. Let's say I discovered this USB drive, or more importantly, somebody else discovered this USB drive, and the company is curious, where did it come from? And we're going to stay away from a police investigation right now. But the company's concerned, like, you know what? We found this in the parking lot and it just seems very suspicious. Could you do a forensics analysis on this to see if people are taking stuff out? And fortunately, our employees have been trained not to put USB drives that they find into their computer. Let me repeat that. The employees have been trained not to put USB drives in their computer. So the employee did the right thing. They found it in the parking lot and they brought it to the help desk. And now we want you to investigate what this could potentially be. So we have a couple steps that we're going to take. And I know I'm kind of blowing this out of proportion, but we're going to start with this video. We're going to start with we need to take an image of this, right? We want to take an image that we can work with that will be fairly safe. So let's start with there. Now, let me go up to my screen and let me explain where I start. First thing you notice is I have a file system up there, and I'm going to be using the program, several different programs, but one of the programs I'm going to be using is Autopsy. And so I named a USB drive that, and I'm going to store all my data to a safe location. I don't want to be saving it to the hard drive on my forensics machine or up on a server that I'm not confident with. So a lot of times we store the data to an external drive. In this particular case, to keep things manageable, I had a USB drive that's like 8 gigabytes. Now, the drive that we found does have a little tag on it that says 256 megabytes. So later on, we're going to document that, but we know this is a fairly small thing. The first thing I want to do is I want to image it. But even before that, I want to build my case. Now, what I have up here is templates. And I use these templates to build the file structure of the case I'm working with. So I have two generic templates. One's a little bit more robust than the other. But if I was to open up, and fundamentally, all these are templates, right? These are file structure templates. They might have stuff in them, but this is the stuff where I'm going to store. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the more robust one, and I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to copy and paste the whole thing. And this one, I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to change the name. And change the name to 2023, the first case. The organization that, say, I'm working for, my machine is acting up on me. I apologize. And we're going to say this is LCC. The investigator is N. DeTiro. And we'll get rid of this rest. So we have a little knowledge building on there. We know what case number it is. The first case in the year 2023. It's for the organization LCC, and I'm the investigator. Now, there's nothing in there. There's some small templates and stuff like that. If I open it up, there's nothing really in there, just folders, folder structure. We can see that there's no image because we're going to populate that information, right? So as we're building our case, we're going to populate this information. So one of the first tools that we're going to investigate is FTK Imager. Now, I provided links in our course site. I'm going to fire it up here. And here's where we got to suspend belief a little bit. I don't have the necessary hardware. I physically don't have the necessary hardware. But we all know not to plug in unknown USB ports to live machines. That's dangerous. So a lot of times we will have additional hardware. We could actually have a dedicated imager, but we're going to do it through FTK Imager. We would have dedicated hardware that would go between this device and our forensics device. So nothing, two things. Nothing bad happens from the USB drive over to the forensics machine and vice versa. We don't contaminate, we don't write from the forensics machine over to this USB drive that we're trying to image. So just we're suspending belief here because I just don't have that technology available to me. But let's pretend I do. So everything, I have a nice forensics environment. I have the necessary hardware in between, and now it's time for me to investigate. Or first step is to image this disk. So I'm going to put it into my USB drive. Give it a second. And as most of you know, when it immediately fired up, it recognized the USB drive as a Windows environment. So what it did was it launched the Windows Explorer saying, okay, here's the USB drive. Now, I do want to pay particular attention. This is a drive. I called it the suspect drive, right? We're suspending reality here. Nobody's going to call their drives or their criminal data or naughty stuff or something like that. But I do want to keep track of it, So I would definitely write this down on my notes right now. But later on, we're going to put that into a given report. We can see that there's several folders here. Now, we have the hardware that's preventing any writing back and forth, but what we really want to do is we want to work on the image. We don't want to go with the live machine. And if there's really one thing that you get out of this initial video is you don't want to work on live data. We want to work on an image. So the whole premise of this video is to work or to create the image that we will use when we're building our other reports. So we're going to use FTK Imager. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say File, Create an Image. Now, FTK Imager can do a whole bunch of things. This video is just really about creating the image and documenting it as we go through. Couple things here. There's different ways we can create different images from different locations. For example, I'm creating an image from a logical drive. I could potentially create an image a physical drive. I'm creating the image from that USB, which is a physical drive. I can create an image from the actual hard drive on a machine, but that would take hours. I can do logical drives. Maybe you're looking at a machine, you can actually put FTK Imager on a flash drive, or there's other hardware in which you can plug into a machine and acquire these logical images there. If it's an existing image file, what we're going to eventually create, you can re-image an image file. Content individual folders. Sometimes, again, I'm not an expert at this. For legal reasons, you may only be allowed to look at certain content. You could look at this folder, but you're not allowed to look at that folder. And think of it this way. If you have to investigate a server, a file server, there could be millions of pieces of data that you don't have privileged access. So I'm not quite sure. Oh, this is a DVD. So we're going to do an image of a physical drive. All right. And we have to be extremely cautious here. This is how Windows sees those drives. So we want to make sure that we're imaging the correct drive. You can see I have a whole bunch of drives at my disposal. I have this first one's just my hard drive in there. This is a 5 terabyte external drive. I got 2 gigabytes. I know it's this one right here. I know it's this 250 megabyte. I'm trying to keep things as small as possible. So I'm going to be imaging that, right? So that's my source. All right. What's the destination? Where I'm going to put it? Now, again, it sounds facetious here, but I'm not. We have to be careful where we're putting this image. We never want to write the stuff back to the source. So we don't want to create an image and dump it back to the source. Our whole premise of creating an image is we eventually want to leave the source, the original equipment, we want to leave that left alone. So I'm going to say the destination. Now, what image type? The standard is the raw DD, right? I don't remember what the other ones. I've seen EO1 several times, and we can look those up. But basically, most of the software I'm going to be using later on in another video, I'm just going to do the raw DD. Let's see. And now here's where we begin to start documenting this situation. And remember, our case number is 2023-001 LCC NDTIRO. We will say this is the first piece of evidence, or actually the only piece of evidence. So we'll just say 001. Unique description. Small, red, and silver USB drive with 25 MB label, right? We want to be a little descriptive because if you're like me, I have so many USB drives, we have so many pieces of stuff. Even though this is one piece of evidence that we're viewing, remember somebody found it in the parking lot, we're trying to but we want to be descriptive as possible because we will forget things. And if we pass this along to other individuals, they want to read the description. The examiner is me, or whoever's doing the investigation, and we can put any additional notes here. All right, file destination. Remember that file structure I created? Well, I want to put it into that onto that other USB drive, the 8 gigabyte USB drive, under the file structure that I created. So I'm going to say browse, and remember I called it autopsy. Here was the case. And I want to put it in images, right? So I'm going to create an image and put it in my folder on the other USB drive called images. The name of the file, we'll just call it USB 001. That's the name. We can call it red USB, but we're just going to keep it fairly simple, all right? And then we're going to finish, and we're going to start, all right? Here's just different parameters. We're just keeping things nice and simple here. And we're going to start. Now, this is going to take a relatively short amount of time because it's a 256 megabyte flash drive. I was playing around with some other USB drives, and I think an 8 gig took about 25 minutes. It was a long process. So I went scrambling through all my old equipment. I said, oh, eureka. If I can find a 128 megabyte USB drive, I'd probably use that. So here we're kind of suspending belief. We all know that these USB drives are just getting bigger and bigger. But you can see it still takes some time to go there because what it is doing, so we're clear on this, it is creating a bit by bit image of that USB drive. Now, in other videos with other software, I can basically work with that image file. I could actually mount that image file and treat that image file as a mountable USB device. So give it a little time here. Now, when it's done, it is going to create a report, and I'll show you where that report is and the pertinent information that is associated with that report. And we're going to start tying in the things that we've learned from previous classes or other courses. So another probably 256 megabytes, taking almost a minute and a half, 2 minutes to go through. You can imagine what an 8 gig or even if I had to image my 5 terabyte hard drive, external hard drive, that would be a little painful. But that is what's done. Alrighty, it did create a report. It excuse me. It displays the report onto the screen. It does create a text file of this report, so you don't have to sit there and copy and paste. Oh, and look what we have here. We have our old friends, the hash values. Now, I'm not quite sure why, but in the industry, people know that MD5 does have issues. Or, MD5 is an older hash algorithm. There's been known collisions, but it is still used quite frequently. But they are using, let's kind of stretch this out a little bit. They are using the SHA-1 hash value. And if I was to go, not close this, but if I was to go back to my Explorer and go find my Topsy, and I go to my case, all right, we can see if we go to images, there is the image, right? This USB 001, that's the image. You'll notice that it did create a text file report. Let's open that up and let's see what we got. All right, simple text file, so you don't need any kind of special software in this regard. And it's basically saying, here's the type of imaging software. Sometimes you have to report that. You're working with a criminal case. They may ask you, how did you image it? What software did you use? Here's the particular case information, the case number, evidence number, unique identifier. Here is the report. I'm just gonna make this a little bit on the screen. Here is a generic report that now is associated with that image that was created. Talks about cylinders, heads, sectors. Here are hash values, right? So we can take this image and now we can copy it to other forensic investigators. Maybe it's a very, very big image, yet we have that little hash value, that digital fingerprint, that if somebody makes changes or something, we can quickly identify it. Other disk information, the date and time that it was acquired, when it started, finished, verifications, etc. So I'm not even saying this is step one of our investigation, but this is a very early step into our investigation. We've taken notes, right? We've documented some notes, and we will start putting that into the reports. Our employees were trained not to put in unknown USB drives into their computer, but the company's concerned. You just don't find USB drives laying in the parking lot. Is somebody walking in and out of things? So they're concerned. Why is it there? And it could be nothing. It could really be nothing that, hey, somebody dropped their USB drive, right? It'd be a nice return there. But we're going to take this very slowly. Okay. Now, with that being said, let's go out and learn something.